Today, we'll be starting a new series where we'll be going through and building various different domain controllers and just building out a brand new network for my lab environment. So today what we'll be doing, we'll be building out a new domain controller. So a brand new domain for an environment with a brand new pristine virtual machine, and walking through all of the steps, or nearly all of the steps, of setting up a new system. And now by no means or any way are any of these best practices or anything like that. I'm just getting my new lab environment up and running through the motions of all of that. And then following getting that system up, I also will be adding a essentially a management server to the environment to manage this, not only the domain controller, but any additional systems that I add to the environment as I continue building complexity to the network. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we have here is a brand new Windows Server 1709 Data Center Edition that has been installed, and we're sitting at the first prompt that you get after installation. So we're going to go ahead and say OK, and we're going to go ahead and assign a new password to the system. Oh, wait a minute. It's like it's not taking my enter key press, which is weird. There we go. Okay. Alright, changing password. Password has been changed. Go ahead and say OK. So to go ahead and do some personalized settings, housekeeping before it boosts into the command prompt for the first time. Alright, so now we're at the command prompt. So now what I want to do, I want to run this command called sconfig. This is allow you to change various different system settings to get started. So for one of the first things I want to do, I want to change the computer name. So by default, it generates this randomly generated name. It's not that useful for me. So I'm going to go press number 2, enter, give it a new computer name. I'm going to use DC1 as the name. Say enter. Then it's going to prompt me to reboot the computer. I'm going to go ahead and allow that and say yes. So that should just take a few seconds for it to go ahead and reboot. So that's rebooted. So I'm going to go ahead and do Control-Alt-Delete and then provide my password again to get into the system. And that throws me right back out to the command prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and do sconfig again. And now what I want to do, I want to go and give this system a static IP address. So I'm going to hit the number 8 to go into network settings. And then hit 1 to select that first network adapter. And then hit 1 again to set the network adapter address manually. And then S to specify I want to do a static address. So I'm going to go ahead and do 172.25.90. Let's leave it at 171. Actually, I'll keep that 171 that it already has. And I'm going to use the same subnet mask. And I'm also going to use the same gateway that's already specified there. Alright, and since I don't have any DNS servers or anything specified or set up currently, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave those settings blank and hit 4 to return to the main menu. And then I'm going to hit 15 to return to the command line. Alright, so now I have a system name DC1, has a static IP address, and now what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and hop over to PowerShell. Alright, so once I'm in PowerShell, now what I want to do, I want to take a look at what Windows features are available. Is it Windows feature or features? I'm not sure if it's plural. Okay, Windows feature. So this is going to list out all the available features that I can install on the system and also show me the ones that are currently already installed. So specifically the one I'm interested in is the one for domain controller. So Active Directory Domain Services is the one that I want to install. And as we see, the name of that is AD-Domain-Services. So that's the feature that I want to install. So let's do install-Windows feature AD-Domain-Services. And we'll go ahead and let that run. That'll run for maybe about a few minutes, few seconds. Shouldn't take too long. So we'll give that a few seconds to install. Alright, so that was installed successfully. So now that we have that installed, now what I want to do, I want to install a new 80 domain services for us. So this has actually quite a few flags that I can attach to it afterwards. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let it do pretty much the default settings for the most part. So I'm going to just run that command as is. And then it prompts me for a few values that it requires. So one is domain name. So I'm going to name this new domain lewistechviews.int. Go ahead and enter. Then I specify a safe mode administrator password. So I'm going to go ahead and do a super secure password for that. Make sure I remember that. And then it's just telling me that the target server will be configured as the domain controller and restart it once the operation is complete. And do I want to continue with that? So I'm going to say A for yes to all. If there's additional prompts, I wanted to go ahead and say yes and approve that. So that's pretty much it. I'm just going to go through, configure everything for the domain controller, and then reboot. And then once the system comes back up, it should be fully a domain controller and ready to serve that function. But again, we have no GUI at this point. So the next part of what we want to do, I want to have maybe join another system to this domain that could be maybe my management endpoint, where I can manage the domain and manage the various different servers and things like that within the environment from that server. So we'll get this, let this run for a few minutes, and then I'll be right back after this completes. So now the domain controller has successfully rebooted, and it is effectively now on the domain. So now at this point, we don't actually need to log back into this server for what we're going to do next. So in the meantime, I've also have prepared another virtual machine, and this virtual machine I will be joining to this domain and configuring it to be a management server or management endpoint for the rest of my environment as I build out additional complexity. So let's go ahead and jump over to that system and continue the deployment. So midstream here, I kind of have a different idea. So I've done quite a few different things here since the last little section of the video. So I have already renamed the server. I just haven't rebooted yet, so it is still manage one. But I went and did some things with my IP address scheme. I decided that I didn't like the IP address scheme that came up by default on my domain controller, so I went back and actually reconfigured that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this new server on the same subnet as that domain controller. So I'm using 192.168.150 as my network now, and I'm going to give this the IP address of 10.10. Leave the subnet mask the same. I currently don't have a gateway for this computer to communicate through, so I'll leave that blank for now. And then I'll use 192.168.150.1 for my DNS server address, and that is the IP address of my DC1 domain controller. So I'll go ahead and say OK again, and close that down. And now I want to go ahead and reboot this server. Go ahead and restart it. I'll say this plan and continue. Go ahead and let that reboot. And then once that comes back up, what we'll do, I'll go ahead and join this system to. Alright, so my server has rebooted. It's coming back online now. Server manager is launching. So we'll just go ahead and jump over to local server. That's thinking about it a little bit. Alright, so we can see computer name now is manage1. We do have that new IP address that I mentioned. So now what I want to do, I'm going to click on this work group button here and hit change, and then I want to change that to domain. So I want to join that lewistechviews.int domain. So now since my DNS server configured on this server is pointing to that new domain controller, I should be able to successfully look up this domain. Alright. So now it's prompting me for some credentials. Go ahead and provide an account that's valid on that domain. Go ahead and say OK. And there we go. Welcome to the lewistechviews.int domain. So go ahead and say OK again, close, restart now. So it's going. Alright, so the server has now rebooted. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and log back in, but this time I'm going to log in with a domain account. So you may have seen that right quick. Since I'm using administrator, since the administrator exists locally on the system, you saw it change back to manage one, which is not what I want to log into. So I need to go ahead and type in the full name of the domain, but then slash administrator, and then that should get me to the domain. Alright, that'll go ahead and load up. Still booting. Alright, so now the server has booted back up. If I go click on local server, I can see now my computer name is manage1, and then I'm also now a member of lewistechviews.int for the domain. Alright, so we're in pretty good shape here. So now I can kind of see some of the settings of the servers and things like that. So now what I want to do, I actually want to install some tools on the system so I can manage various different aspects of the domain. So I'm going to go ahead and hit manage and say add roles and features. Hit next, next, and next. And actually next again. And so now the pieces that I'm most interested in, I want to scroll down to remote server administration tools. Go ahead and expand that out. And then feature administration tools. So there are some pieces that I'm going to want. So I probably will do things related to Philip cluster management. I may explore some storage replica. Not really doing anything with Win server, so I won't mess with that. For Active Directory, I want all of the Active Directory tools. I want all of the Hyper-V tools. For the purpose of this, I won't really do anything with remote desktop services quite yet. Some WSUS, no. Certificate services I will need. DHCP I want. DNS I want. File services tools. No, I don't need any of those for now. Print and document services, we'll go ahead and install those. Remote access management, don't need any of those. And Windows deployment services, we don't need any of those either. So that should be good. Let's start with those and go ahead and say next. And let's go ahead and say install. Alright, so it looked like that installed successfully. So I have my tools on the server now. So I'll go ahead and close that. So now what I can do, since I have various different tools installed, I can go ahead and hit tools. And then as far as Active Directory, I can go ahead and hit run Active Directory users and computers. So that should pop up in a second here. There we go. So now I'm effectively managing that domain controller that does not have a GUI. I'm using remote management. So see, I can see remote. I'm connected to lewistechviews.int. See that one domain controller that I have added to the system, and now I can manage my users, groups. I can add additional computers and various different things, all from this remote management box that I'll be using for various different purposes. Alright, hopefully this video has been helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.